Welcome to Big Dreams, Small Suitcases.
We're Adam and Anwin, and we're a travel-loving couple from Manchester in the UK.
Follow along as we travel the world. Our journey through Alberta took us up from Calgary along the Trans-Canadian Highway, and then onto the Icefields Parkway, stopping at Banff, Lake Louise, Columbia Icefields, and finally onto Jasper. The scenery on this road is amazing, with waterfalls, lakes, mountains and glaciers all nearby, and we were also hoping to see some of the wildlife.
We arrived in Calgary following a nice lunchtime flight with WestJet from San Francisco.
Calgary is known as Cowtown, and every year they host a stampede, an extravaganza of everything Western related, with rodeos, exhibitions and parades.
Unfortunately for us, this was the following week, so we didn't get to see this in action, but we did see some of the acts practicing before their big moments.
This is clearly a highlight in the Calgary calendar, so if you're planning a visit, try and do it that week. We also visited Studio Bell, the home of the National Music Centre, which celebrates Canadian music and its artists across different types of genre.
From pop, rock and folk to Indigenous artists. As well as the exhibits of instruments and outfits, there are also videos and interactive displays, and the centre has its own concert theatre for live performances. There are also instruments you can pick up and learn how to play, with different levels of experience covered and other hands-on experiments.
If you love music, this is not to be missed. We took a walk along the Bow River and Princes Island Park and Eau Claire area.
This is a really chilled out area and worth visiting when you're in the city.
Our time in Calgary was up and the Rocky Mountains were calling.
It was time to pick up our hire car, leave the plains of Farm Belt and head to Banff.
As we left Calgary, we could see the Rocky Mountains on the horizon. The scenery became more extreme and awe-inspiring.
The drive doesn't take too long from Calgary. The only thing that will slow you down is how many times you want to stop and take in the breathtaking views.
As we entered the area of Banff, we travelled along the Tunnel Mountain Road, where we caught our first sight of big wildlife, deer.
We stayed at the Buffalo Mountain Lodge just on the outskirts of Banff near Tunnel Mountain View.
The views from this stopping point are incredible, and there is another great viewing point just up from there called Hoodoos.
We'd really recommend this for sunset.
The town centre was a 30-minute walk from the beautiful and very comfortable lodge, which was fine for going there, especially as you take in all the beautiful views.
But there is quite a steep climb back up the hill on the return leg.
There is a shuttle bus, so if you'd rather not walk, look into that.
Banff is a very picturesque town with lots of charm and character.
We were there over the weekend, and the town was very busy with lots of tourists and sightseers.
We took a stroll along the Bow River, which is accessible from the town centre, and we followed it until we reached the falls.
Although there were some steep sections, some including steps, the trail is well maintained and the views of the river are incredible. We came back at sunset when we drove down to the car park at the bottom of the falls, which was just beautiful.
On another day, we watched the sun setting over the mountains from Norquay Mountain, which also gave us great views of the town of Banff itself.
From there, we headed to Vermilion Lakes for the final parts of sunset.
You'll definitely want your bug spray here, as there are thousands of them.
But it was worth braving it for the incredible reflections in the lake. Banff is a must-do, very beautiful with scenery that takes your breath away.
Just under 30 minutes north of Banff is Johnson Canyon.
The canyon has two falls. The lower falls is a short walk of about 1 kilometre with a slight climb.
The upper falls are another 1.3 kilometres, and this part of the trail is steeper.
Some of the trail takes you out over the water on narrow paths, which can be busy, and you might need to be a little patient. There are plans to widen these, but it might be worth getting there early to enjoy a more relaxed walk, as it was busy when we were there about 2 p.m. We really enjoyed this stop. The spray from the waterfall was lovely and cooling on a hot summer's day after the climb.
As we left Banff, we took the Bow Valley Parkway to Lake Louise, which runs parallel to the Trans-Canada Highway, and we were glad we did.
This road was absolutely stunning with amazing views around every corner and plenty of viewpoints along the way.
We'd recommend taking your time to make sure you don't have to rush.
This is where we had our first black bear sighting, which we recognised because we saw lots of people pulled over looking up the hill. Top tip, if a group of cars is pulled over, it's likely because some wildlife has been spotted. Pull over safely and see what you can see.
We had a one-night stay in Lake Louise. This glacial lake is one of the star attractions of the Rocky Mountains, and it's not hard to see why.
Even though the weather was a little overcast, it was still incredibly beautiful, and it looks even better when it's sunny.
The glacial water gives an incredible blue tint to the lake.
For those of you with deep pockets, you can stay at the Fairmount, right on the lake, or for a more budget-friendly experience, maybe just grab a drink on the terrace.
We opted for the Deer Lodge, which although was still expensive for a one-night stay, it was much cheaper than the Fairmount, and was only a 5-minute walk to the lake.
This meant that after dinner we were able to go back to the lake and it was much less crowded. After our night at Lake Louise, we headed back on the road.
There were lots of pulling-in spots that were well signposted along the route, and our favourite on this part of the road was Paytail Lake. We could not believe how incredible this view was.
If you're parking in the lower car park, it is a good but steep path up to the viewing platform, but it was 100% worth it. There is a more accessible car park at the top for coaches and those who have disabled parking.
This was a highlight for us, and we often think back to the wow factor of our lake. Our photos and videos don't do it justice. As we were entering Banff National Park, we had to buy a pass, which is available at the drive-through gate as you enter the park.
You'll need a pass for each day you'll be in the park, or you can buy an annual Discovery Pass, which also covers you for entry into 100 national parks and conservation areas across Canada.
As you head up the Icefields Parkway, keep your eyes open for wildlife. We saw another bear crossing the road here.
About halfway up the Icefields Parkway is Columbia Icefields,
a resort and visitor centre located next to Mount Athabasca and the Athabasca Glacier.
This was our first time being able to see a glacier in person, and we were lucky enough to catch a glimpse of an avalanche.
There are snow coach tours available to go up onto the glacier.
But as we were planning to do this on an upcoming tour in Iceland, we decided to leave it for now.
You can, however, just park at the car park and walk up to it to get a good view, and that's totally free.
We did this, and it was a great experience. We left the Icefields and started our route up to Jasper. Jasper is a tourist destination in its own right. It felt quite different from Banff.
It felt a little less commercial and more down to earth.
We decided to explore some of the local attractions, and one of our favourites was the Jasper Sky Train.
A cable car that takes you 2,263 metres up Whistler's Mountain. From the upper station you can reach the summit another 200 metres high by taking the 1.2 kilometres walk. Or you can just go to the Summit Cafe and have a nice hot chocolate and a slice of cake with amazing views and get some shelter from the wind.
There are some great waterfalls near Jasper that are definitely worth visiting. The Sunwamter Falls are just south of Jasper.
You can see both the upper and lower falls, but the star attraction is the upper falls with a small island just before the 18-metre drop.
Although the Athabasca Falls aren't the highest, they are incredibly powerful, and getting close to the drop gives you a feel of just how mighty these falls are. Malane Canyon features several walks of different length, using the 6 bridges that cross over the canyon, giving you plenty of options, and even the shorter walks give you a great view down into the canyon 50 metres below.
Just on the outskirts of town are Edith and Annette Lakes, which are fed from underground springs rather than the river. They're next to each other, so it's easy to visit both at the same time.
We walked the full distance around Annette Lake, which has some beautiful views across the water reflecting Pyramid Mountain.
As we're heading back to town, we had our last bear encounter whilst in Canada and pulled over to have a watch.
It's amazing to see these wonderful creatures just going about their business. Please be careful and respectful of these beautiful animals.
Jasper was probably our favourite stop on the route up. Plenty to see and do, great places to eat, and the town has a lovely relaxed feel.
We absolutely loved our road trip through Alberta. We loved the sights and the places we stayed, but the drive itself was a big part of the experience, and our time in the car is something that will stay with us for a very long time.
We thought this is one of the best drives you can do. Let us know in the comments if you agree.
If not, tell us which other roads we need to try out.
Leaving Jasper would mark the next leg of our time in Canada.
After moving north for 12 days, we'd now be heading south through British Columbia towards Vancouver.